Yeah, we got more than 20 people. Let's start.
Great. Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you everybody for joining today. My name is Sukhman Najjar, and I will be moderating today's session. Today, we are very, very fortunate to be joined by a diverse set of panelists from the 1World team, as well as advocates for 1World. We'll start shortly with the introduction from our 1World CEO and founder, Alex Fedosev, and then be joined by 1World advocates, Neville Taraporewalla, president of Brand Capital and Times Group, Sal Hudson, founder of Angle 42 and previously an executive at Reuters. Our 1World advocates will be discussing the state of the industry, trends, outlooks for the near and long-term future, and more. Additionally, we'll also be happy to be joined by 1World regional managers, Wale Faroon, representing Africa, Julia Zolotarenko, representing Europe, and Wendell M, representing the Caribbean. Alex, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining our webinar, which we do every month. And for those of you who are joining for the first time, we'll give an overview of the company. And for everybody who already know about our company and our product, we'll give a quick update about what's new during the last month. And we actually do have a series of events that are very interesting. So I'll start with the history of the company. We are a Silicon Valley startup, and we exist for 8 years. We're going to actually celebrate October 1st. And the industry that we're in, the digital media, is very interesting. It's one of the most powerful. It's a lot of money circulating, of course, and advertising business is one of the top in the world. But at the same time, there are many serious problems across the board. Publishers struggling with the revenue streams and retention of their audiences. Users don't get nice experiences, and they are not incentivized for everything they do online, which creates some interesting opportunity. And most importantly, advertisers, people who pay money for their campaigns, they experience a huge decline in efficiency of these campaigns. The click-through rates, the return on investment are always on decline. So great industry, but a lot of issues. So the solution that 1World is providing, and so if you please go to the next slide, is about changing this user experience and to benefit publishers and advertisers. So let's consider when you're on the article, in this case in San Francisco Examiner, our local newspaper, and instead of just reading the text with no engagement, we embed our tools, the way they supplement the article and give people a voice. So essentially we enable engagement. If you click yes. The tools show up next to the article, and it's a combination of all questions or quizzes or debates or some other formats and relevant advertising. So as a result, we're changing the whole experience from reading just articles to having a combined, what we call media unit, which combines interesting content, contextual poll, and very relevant advertising. So if you please next, we'll see that one more time. Yes, so here are the metrics that we see usually on the sites, that people's engagement on average is 18%, but could be as high as 50%, depending on the content. The increase in the pages per visit usually goes 2x after 1World tools are deployed. There's definitely a better retention because people are willing to come back and participate. And so everybody wins from this situation because publishers get people more loyal and spending more time just through engagement and participation. And advertisers have a really nice format. We call it native advertising because it's essentially blended into experience. It's not alien. It's not something that people don't feel good, but it's really organic. And we built this really powerful system behind the scenes over these 8 years. So on the front end, we have a variety of modules. We call them widgets or IMUs, interactive media units, which combine polls, quizzes, debates, surveys. On the back end, we have really powerful analytical system that allows you to track performance at the poll level or widget level, or profile people and understand what are they interested in. So that creates a really deep level of intelligence, the first-hand data. But also people who participate, they can create their own ID in 1World system and get incentivized. We had point system from pretty much beginning of the company. And then in 2017, we introduced 1World tokens. So people can redeem their points into tokens or the actual goods. We're developing quite a few partnerships around it. As a result of this architecture, the advertising is much more targeted and relevant. And to summarize, what 1World provides is a win-win-win, as we like to call it, because everybody wins from this engagement: advertisers, publishers, and audiences. I'm actually borrowing one slide from Julia, who is doing a very amazing campaign right now. So you can see that we are very friendly for mobile, not just for desktop. And usually when the campaign runs on the mobile experience, you can see very nice organic combination as well. Article with a matching poll. In this case, it's about the technology, and then advertising. So this campaign is actually running right now on Times Group properties, and it advertises event. Since everything is online nowadays, it's a blockchain hackathon that our partners are running, and the efficiency of this campaign is really high. One thing I want to mention is not just about 1World producing really good product for engaged audiences. It's the whole industry is moving in this direction. There are some statistics about how native advertising is going to replace display advertising over the next few years. You can see the statistics coming from independent sources. And it's expected that this $5 billion industry with this interactive and other native formats is going to reach 74% in the very near future. So we definitely are part of the trend. And what we're doing is very much in line with the industry expectations. And this is our team. I'm really proud that we built this amazing team across the globe. So we have people in the US, both East Coast and West Coast and Midwest. We have representatives in many countries: Latin America, Caribbean, India, Europe, Eastern and Western, Japan, and many other places. And the team is very strong on the technical side. All the folks came with the background of building robust products in their previous careers. So we're about 40 people strong. And some of the folks are here on this call and will provide you updates about regional activities. And to talk about our strategy going forward, what we're trying to do is, number one, we grow our publisher network, because it always starts with a good inventory, as we call it. We want to have similar, like we do in the US and India, same kind of deployments shown across the globe. And we're doing really well in Africa and in Europe. And now Asia is launching and more coming. Second is we build a really scalable ad revenue streams on top of this inventory. So we essentially connect demand and supply. This advertising comes next to our modules. So we build in really nice slots with the organic engagement. So advertisers love it because they do want to be part of this native advertising experience with much higher efficiency. So we try to go by channels. And with all this traffic growing and opportunities coming in, we put a lot of effort in operationalizing and automating our processes. So our teams in Denver and across the globe are very focused on processes, automation, and integration of third-party partners. And this is an example of some of the publishers that we already deployed. Newsweek, IBT, our top ones in the US, but many, many small ones, and some major global deployments too. And next slide will show some of the recent advertising deals that we're working on. And our regional managers will talk about this, but you can see there are some really good names coming that already signed and the ones that are in development. And it's not just US, many of them are coming from other countries, which makes it even more interesting because we can run campaigns for the same brand in different regions. It makes it more diversified and interesting for their customers. And next slide, I want to share a list of our partners. 1World is really good in building partnerships. And as you can tell, we have quite a few categories. On technology side, our closest partners are Amazon and IBM Watson for AI. Icon is an amazing company from San Francisco for ID management. Advertising, of course, we work with Google, but also at Apex, which is a very innovative company from New York, and Origin from Philadelphia. On the data side, we partner with the Scient, Hipster, and now Somin, which is a really deep, intelligent AI company from Singapore. And I'll talk about this in more details on next slide, but Algorand is our next major partnership that we develop and very actively. We signed the deal for investment and technology partnership. So if you please go to the next slide, I'll tell about a bit more. Algorand is the most innovative blockchain platform in the US. The founders of the company came from MIT. And 1World, of course, is, as we know, is an innovative native advertising platform. So they combine together very well. And we run in our next generation system on Algorand. Right now it's in development and prototyping. but in 2021, that's going to be our main focus, to transition our platform for the loyalty programs, discount program, and some other interesting content management use cases to Algorand, which we consider to be the fastest and the most reliable solution on the market. And if you please go to the next slide, you will see the founder of this company, Mr. Silvio Micali. He's a top Italian-American scientist who is at MIT since 1980s, and he built this amazing protocol and a whole ecosystem around it. So it's not just the underlying technology, but it's also a very powerful toolkit, incubators, fund, and a lot of people involved in both Algorand Foundation and the Borderless Capital as an investment arm of this company. So 1World is officially part of the program. We announced it, and we're very excited to work with them going forward. So that was a major update from us. And since many participants on Republic, where we're running crowdfunding campaign, and people in general are really interested about our valuation, about how 1World is looking for the strategic purposes, I'd like to mention that since I've been through 3 exits in Silicon Valley, and through this due diligence process and defining the price and meeting the requirements of big companies, I want to emphasize that there's the 3 factors, the way I see them. The key metrics are not just revenue, it's important, but also the footprint growth and engagement with the system. Next thing is very important is market. And as you can tell, in our case, it's a huge market, probably one of the biggest in the world, and the fit in the market. And we can see that Web 3.0 with modularity, decentralization, and some new use cases, essentially switching from Internet of Information to Internet of Value, is a big trend. And we are definitely part of this trend. As a matter of fact, we are one of the leaders, because the combination of features and the factors, we are pretty unique. We provide more than any of our competitors. And finally, the strategic fit, definitely very important to have relationships with the companies who could be going to next level in the way how we work together. Since I've been through this multiple times in my career, we built pretty much the same level of relationships between the big tech providers and media companies and the ecosystem companies. So I think that completes my part. So back to you.
Great, thank you very much, Alex. And now I'm happy to introduce our first 1World advocate, Neville Taraporewalla. As I mentioned before, Neville is the president of Brand Capital, a very well-known and renowned venture capital firm based here in the United States, and also the president of Times Group, which is, if not the most well-known publisher in India. So I'm happy to introduce Neville. Neville, would you like to start with an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you very much, Alex and team, for inviting me this morning to be part of this webinar. In fact, I'm delighted to what I see as far as 1World is concerned. And in my earlier very brief discussion with Alex, I actually recalled when I first met him at the Computer Museum. And one of the key things which really impressed us was Alex himself, his ability to believe in what he's doing. And I have actually been part of this journey, observing the company for the last 5 years. And I'm really, really happy to see the progress that Alex and team have made, and just validates the confidence we had in that company then, which was very early stage. So I think one of the reasons why I happen to be in the digital business for some time now, almost my last entire decade. I used to be the country manager for Yahoo in India, and thereafter I was with Microsoft. So I understood what Alex was trying to do. In reality, publishers are struggling for revenue. Barring some of the leading publishers who lead in markets, most publishers around the world are dependent on Google, who does very little rev share directly to them. And therefore, publishers needed to find ways to build engagement. And like Alex mentioned earlier, they marry the demand and supply with providing excellent marketing tools online. And I've seen some success with Newsweek, though I didn't see Newsweek today, but Newsweek's success has been there. So I think I'm delighted to be associated with the company. We as an organization have a pretty large audience in the United States through our websites, through our television channels, etc. Very multicultural and ethnic, apart from the fact that we are the largest multi-platform media company in India. So I won't take much of the time, but yes, we are a large media company in India. We believe in what One World is doing. We see huge value in what they're doing. And what we're trying to do is basically look at companies in the US who are looking at India as a potential market. And I'll just leave with one thought as to why One World is so critical out here for as far as we are concerned as an investor. There are 3,000, apart from the Times Group in India, there are over 3,000 publishers, web publishers in India. And we believe that if appropriate outreach is done as One World grows, India is going to be the next center of gravity. And I think Alex's team is well positioned to address India as we go ahead. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Neville. And again, we'll be doing a panel discussion just in a few seconds. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce our second advocate, Saul Hudson, who, as you can see here, is a previous executive at Reuters. He ran the Blockchain Innovation Awards at Newsweek. He's a co-founder at Angle 42. He has much experience and focus on Europe and UK as a region as a whole. Thank you very much, Saul, for joining us. Would you please introduce yourself as well?
Sure, thank you very much. And I'm delighted to be here. It was great to get the summary, Alex, and I'm very intrigued by the opportunities in India. My own background is I'm actually from the news business because I was a journalist, and I was a journalist for 20 years at Reuters. Because of that, I traveled the world reporting out of war zones and presidential palaces, but also I was involved in reporting on markets and financial instruments. I became the general manager of the Americas. So I was running the operations for Reuters, and Reuters is a large news agency. I was running the operations for 700 journalists, all the way from Argentina up to Canada. And the budget at the time that I had to spend each year was $80 million. Sounds a lot, but believe me, it was never quite enough. And the reason I'm explaining that background is I have the mixture of being the journalist who knows what a good story is and knows what you want to try and achieve, engaging your audience. But I have a business hat on as well, because we were having to shape those news products for what was a fast evolving media landscape, and one which others have quite rightly said is challenged to provide revenue. Now, what I did was I jumped from Reuters into blockchain. And I generally work with, on the communication side, helping companies with their blockchain projects. And this gives me this sort of unique insight into what Alex is doing. And I find it impressive because from my own experience, whether I'm looking at it as a journalist, or I'm looking at it as a news media executive, or I'm looking at it as a blockchain communications guy, in all these ways, One World seems to fit the bill. And I know I don't have to sort of just take my feeling for it. I still have my network of contacts. And, you know, I had an executive at one of the bigger brands that Alex has mentioned saying to me, you know, this is the first time in so many years that someone has come to me with a product that actually gives me more revenue, you know? And having been on the inside, looking at all the different ways to maintain high quality journalism, but have good revenue as well, that's such a challenging scenario. So I can understand why One World is the godsend. And, you know, just from a sort of a personal standpoint, all of us are looking for information, we're reading news, and I've noticed One World polls popping up because I recognize them and I've seen examples of them. And this is pretty interesting for me that, you know, in my own life, I'm coming up against this product. And you find yourself wanting to answer the questions because they're relevant. But also, I think Alex is so right to point out the trend of native advertising. It doesn't feel intrusive. And it's really important, I think, for user experience that a news brand has an established brand, has attracted its audience. They're very familiar with what they get from that news brand. So if they get an advertisement that is jarring because it doesn't fit, then that really is actually quite irritating for them. But the opposite is true. If it's native, it feels like it's just part of their experience, you know? So here I am, I'm dealing with Reuters. Oh, and I've been reading about the US election. There's a poll question about the election. I'm now better informed. I answer it and I want to see what other people are thinking as well. So, you know, for different reasons, I've been enjoying the relationship with 1World. I've seen the growth, I've seen the success. I actually think that there's so much more success that is due. And this particular period is very exciting. I mentioned the US election because I think so many people are engaged, at least where I'm based, which is Miami. You know, in the United States, so many people are engaged in this particular contentious election that may not even finish on the night of the vote. So, you know, people are going to be consuming news, and it's a great time for these news brands and the advertisers to actually use tools that 1World provides, because this is how you're going to get that extra revenue stream.
Beautiful. Great. Thank you very much, Saul. And I think this is a good transition to our panel discussion. As you're talking about publishers, native advertising, and all those kind of things. I guess we can start with Neville. If you can please take the first question. Neville, what do you think is the most important thing for publishers in this day and age, where we live in a world where more than half of the world is working remotely? Publishers are seeing traffic that they've never seen before. And we're looking for, you know, the next big trend, considering the times that we're in. Can you talk a bit more on that?
Yeah. So if, you know, I started my career with print. I used to be part of the print business of the group many, many years ago. I actually sort of migrated to the digital side of the business. And there was a time when, you know, as most people know, the print guys would sort of look at you and say, what nonsense are you talking about digital? We are so much away from that day, you know. I mean, today, because of the pandemic, newspaper circulation in India got stunted, because in India, and probably Saul would know, the newspaper delivery in India is actually done by delivery boys, and the distributor would pick up the newspapers and do the delivery. And during the last 6 months, no newspaper boy was there to actually effect the delivery to the doorstep of the subscribers. What did they do? They actually migrated to the digital side of the business. Now the group, being the group it is, has invested in the digital side of the business. So as I see it, we believe, and we as an organization believe, that the way we have built our platforms is actually to be digitally first. I think New York Times is a great example of what they've done. We believe that we are not yet there. We don't charge subscription for our digital assets. Typically in India, advertising has always sort of offloaded the cost of printing. I don't know how long that is going to continue, but we see an increased trend of people using digital assets. And again, coming back to what I said earlier, that's why I believe that this conversation we are having at the 1World seminar is so relevant, because what 1World really does is really help publishers to increase engagement and therefore revenue to them. Because right now, the only player which really takes away 80, 85, 90% of the revenue is Google. This is a great way to look at increasing engagement and getting additional revenue. So overall, moving to digital is a no-brainer.
Awesome. How about you, Saul? Could you just talk a bit on in your eyes, what's the most important thing for publishers in this day and age?
Right. Well, I think the particular dynamic of this year has been tantalizing for the publishers, but we also see huge challenges. On the positive side, it's the consumption of news that has gone up greatly. I think we all saw the spike in numbers at the beginning, just because people were at home. And therefore they had more time in front of their computers, and they were surfing the internet at a time when people really wanted information as well. It felt like there was a particularly fast evolving situation that was impacting everybody's lives. And I think that the general consumption has remained high, even though people have gone back to work, some in offices and many still at home, but they're more occupied. But we saw that engagement. That's very good news for the industry, because this has been a part of the economy that's always challenged over the last few years. What we also have to recognize on the other side of things, though, is that economies are suffering. And therefore, when it comes to advertising budgets, there are going to be challenges on that side. So what does it mean? It means that for a publisher, you've definitely got the ability to capture audience, right? And that's what you live and die on as a business. So you have that opportunity. At the same time, you have advertisers who are going to be thoughtful about their budgets. And so if you have something that's ready for this dynamic and appealing to both sides, then you have a great solution. And I think the fact that what we're doing here through 1World is providing engagement, that means you're able to capture that audience and give the publishers and the advertisers extra revenue streams, is really special. And it so happens that it's occurring at this really important time. So I think you can see that 2020 provided a new opportunity that nobody could have anticipated, and also the challenge. And really, if you're going to look at how to create the bridge between those two, then a 1World solution is perfect.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And if I may amplify what Neville said earlier, so I think it's important to mention that I totally agree with Saul's point about this definitely very positive for us development of the industry, but also it's bundled with another trend, which is quite remarkable. We see acceleration of transition in some countries from offline to online to make it more inclusive, because internet, of course, still not 100% people having an advantage of being on it, right? And for example, in India, there's a major investment activities to put in a government program together with the big tech companies to bring people online. And we are part of it, partnered with a few companies in the country. As Neville said, that's the biggest market in the world. And we're really glad to see that there's a government program bundled with the overall industry trend to bring more people online, which means more traffic and more revenue and more opportunities for us.
Awesome, great. Neville, back to you. Considering that, like, it's pretty interesting to think about that, right? The transition from people literally bagging up newspapers, bringing them to your front door, and the whole transition. I think your team is spearheading it, the transition to digital. What's the best area for innovation in your idea for publishers?
So I think the most important thing is how do you start delivering all of this effectively on the mobile? And the reason, I'll give you a few statistics. I'm just going to throw out some numbers. India is the second global, it has the second largest global internet user base after China. With problems that we have with China, both the US as well as India, a lot is being focused on India. There are about 700 million active internet users right now. India has jumped the desktop generation. They've moved because the cost of access, cost of hardware was very expensive. I work for Microsoft, so I know what it is. They jumped to mobile. So one of the challenges for most companies has been, how do you make your product service available easily for it to be viewed through the mobile interface? Okay, we have 1.3 billion people in the country. Little over 50% now have internet access or penetration, and that's largely because of the proliferation of mobile phones, not desktops. So that is something always on. The biggest beneficiary of all these metrics has been the streaming platforms. We've seen, in fact, the group ourselves have a streaming platform called MX Player. We have seen our subscriber base just rocket on the streaming platforms. I think advertising industry is trying to find a way to engage with that audience on the mobile device. They never expected that, you see. So the reality is that with 520 million people staying in, which we classify as urban population of the 1.3, you're talking about a huge base which is engaging, whether it's news, whether it's gaming, whether it is utility services, etc. Now, how do you ensure that you make all of this profitable for your company? And that's how I see it.
Great, awesome, that's perfect. And Saul, I have a question for you. I think it's safe to say that you're one of the players that's ahead of the curve in terms of endorsing blockchain for publishers. What is, in your eyes, the main key factor for publishers to understand for blockchain innovation? Like many people are, I would say, are on the lesser side of adopting on the publisher side. What's one thing that they can be aware of the innovation for blockchain and why they should endorse it?
Well, you know, I think people don't have to worry about the particular technology and the details of that. If they want to understand it and how it works, that's great. But the one thing that they should recognize is that this is aimed at creating engagement. And if you're a publisher, what you need is an engaged audience. If you think how generally people are consuming news online, you often find that people cite stories and say, oh, I saw this headline, or I was reading this article. And they rarely say, I was reading a New York Times article, a Reuters article, a Times Group article. They're not necessarily associating what they're consuming with the actual brand, which is quite funny. You know, if you go to the fridge and you get some yogurt, you're pretty much... We're
getting some feedback, Saul. I think there might be someone who's unmuted, or can everyone make sure they're muted? You can go for it, Saul. Let's make sure.
Sure, thanks. I was just explaining that slight disconnect. Or it's an anomaly that when you purchase or you engage with a brand, with a product that you're consuming, usually you know what brand it is, right? You go to the fridge and you pick out your yogurt, you know it's Danone or Yofit or something, not, oh, I had this nice yogurt today. That's the way we're consuming news, unless you can create better engagement. And that better engagement with the loyalty involves having them interact, knowing that they're doing something with you as a publisher. And this is where blockchain comes in, because it opens up the whole possibility of using tokens. And so, you know, it's like many things, blockchain is a technology infrastructure that you actually don't have to see because it's the pipes in the background that are working, but the actual engagement of earning rewards, of feeling that you're receiving a prize just because you're involved, it also automatically creates that stickiness. So I think that for those of us who are in the blockchain space, there are many, many details about how it actually works. And there are huge efficiencies for the publishers, for the advertisers, just because you don't have as many need, you don't have as much need for middlemen to manage the transactions. Alex said it very eloquently. We've moved to an internet of value. And when you live on that internet, whether you're an advertiser or a publisher, you have to recognize that blockchain enables tokens, and that's value. And it's a different type of system. I think there is some skepticism or some ignorance, let's say, where we need to educate people about how a token really is value. But you know, Alex will say, look, a 1World token, right? It equals a CPM. Well, advertisers know that that's valuable. Publishers know that that has value. And I think that's it for me, that if you want to talk about how the news business, how the advertising business can get its head around what blockchain and cryptocurrency tokens are, it's summarized in one thing: engagement.
Awesome, great. And Alex, one more question for you, and then we'll transition to our regional managers. Considering that 1World is entering an interesting space, right? We're offering innovation and disruption to the digital media industry. From your standpoint, what does the future of the digital media market look like for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting space because I believe that's going to be absolutely a radical change of the format, how people consume content. Very much like we switch from Web 1.0 to 2.0. And then suddenly social media and social networks became popular. I think we're on the verge of another big change. We don't even know what it's going to be, right? But I believe that modularity is a part of it, because delivering content to any place that requires to see some fresh original content might be an option. That's why I think the content delivery network, in the way that there's a place where content is created, could be marketplace, and the places where the content is consumed, like publishers in different shapes and forms. I think this media companies are going to transform completely. They're going to be more modular, like taking technologies and content from various sources and just bundle them together and still promoting through their brand and to their audiences. But the sources of both content and advertising are going to change radically. I think current advertising model is way too complicated, cumbersome, and awkward. And I think it's ready for change. And blockchain, I agree, Sol would be the foundation of it. It will be behind the scenes, enabling this new mechanisms, right? Making them based on business rules rather than arbitrary processes that we have today.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for engaging. Hopefully our attendees gained value from that panel discussion. I'm happy to proceed with our regional managers. We'll start with Wal from Africa. Take it away, Wal.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me on the call today. My name is Wale Farun. Originally, I'm from Nigeria. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've been working with 1World, I would say since the beginning of the year. Alex and I met in Silicon Valley last year, and like he shared, I shared the same perspective with the advocates that we're entering a new phase of digital media, and what 1World is doing, the solution, packaging it for both publishers and brands is really innovative, and it's been exciting taking this to the African region. A little bit about what makes the region specifically ripe for this this time. It's a population of about 1.2 billion people, very diverse, and within that population, the young people actually now make up about 60%. We've seen phenomenal mobile penetration over the last couple of years, leapfrogging the desktop age, just like it was described for India a few minutes ago. We've seen steady GDP growth across the continent, with some countries showing significant growth when compared to other developing nations around the world. And we've seen more active participation of tech giants in the continent as well. Just this week alone, Facebook announced that it's going to be opening its second regional office in Africa, in Lagos, Nigeria, starting in 2021. So they're saying something. They're saying more adoption of penetration of internet, adoption of social media, engagement is increasing. So on the back of that, we see the continent as being ripe for the 1World solution. And what have we done in the last few months? We've really engaged the top publishers in the market, and we've been able to convert, I would say, a significant number of the top 10 publishers in that region, starting from the Nigerian market. So some of the players that you are seeing listed on the screen right now are some of the leading players in the news space, and providing engaging content to audience in that space. And right now we have an aggregate of over 100 million impressions that we can deliver through this publisher network in that region alone, which makes this network really viable for brands and for advertisers. If you can go to the next slide, this is just showing just one of such publishers, showing the core demographic split of the readers, of the people that consume that content. Like I was saying, Africa presents such a young population. If you see in the splits, people of age between 18 and 44 dominate, content engagement and consumption in that region, which makes it really interesting. Over the last few months, we've delivered, in terms of poll impressions, over 60 million on this website alone, with just less than 500,000 polls or votes placed on the platform. We've seen over 200,000 unique voters, and the engagement on the publisher site has increased by about 15%. You can see all the category impressions just on this one publisher website. And when you think of that multiplier effect across the different publishers in the region, you can see the kind of impact that 1World is already having in that region. But just to quickly touch, before I close out, I know I have just 5 minutes, to quickly touch on the trends that we're seeing from publishers and brands in the region. On the publishing side, on the publishing side of publishers, we're seeing that publishers are enjoying the additional engagement that they're getting from their readers through the 1World interactive media unit that we deployed on the platform, which is great. I think there's an expectation of increase in revenue as a result of this engagement. We're working with publishers to fine-tune that, and that's happening as we speak. The publishers are seeing this as an innovative next step or next stage in advertising solutions. So it's beyond just banner advertising. I can't believe that already we're talking about, the way we do digital advertising as already traditional, and the 1World, solution is the new age or the new type of delivering innovative advertising solution to brands. And we're also seeing that publishers, they have quick expectation in terms of revenue, and we're working with them to achieve that. For brands, very quickly as I begin to wrap up, brands are seeing this as completely new shift in advertising paradigm. So this is good. They feel like, this is just beyond displaying, campaign banners. They feel like they can get a lot of business data, analytics that can get them insights on how, to place product, to launch new products, to engage with customers about their brands. They also see this as a way to measure, return on investment in the way they haven't been able to do it up until now. And, they are all willing. I think we have quite a number of brands who are willing to test and pilot the solutions before the end of the year. So quite exciting. We're doing quite a bit in the Africa region, and we look forward to more. It's an exciting time, and it's been great working with the team at 1World.
Yep, thank you very much. Well, I appreciate that. And now we can transition to Julia, who's our representative for Europe.
Yes, hello everyone. Let me introduce myself for those who I did not have yet chance to meet. So my name is Julia. Previously, I worked for a chatbot company. So the concept of communicating and engaging with the users as the main way of communicating information is very close to me. The things which Saul said about publishers being interested in engaging the users and providing more and more relevant information, like in the context of customer care, has not yet penetrated all of the regions within Europe. Now I'm speaking about Eastern Europe in particular. So, could you please switch to the next slide? Okay, so yeah, I've recently joined the team, so we have not yet had the chance to develop the market fully. But as for the trends I have been noticing recently is that the more like niche publishers are more ready to experiment, and they already noticed this trend about reducing the like the overload of information and advertising on their websites, and instead focusing on more targeted ads and banners, etc. So we've recently launched within several clusters. The most prominent one is financial cluster, where I think one of the reasons is that the publishers here, they're have the option to monetize using sponsorships and collaborations with banks and financial services. So they're more ready to and open to the new ways to engage and make their users more loyal to the brand. So in the financial cluster, we've recently launched with 3 websites. And Obyzryevatel, which we're launching right now, is the general news website. So for the last 2, Obyzryevatel and Ukrainian Media Holding, I noticed the same trend that has been also mentioned by Neville previously about users shifting to the mobile devices more and more. So you know, on the onboarding process, most of the questions have been regarding how does the technology work on mobile devices. So this is very relevant right now, and we are focusing on making our tools as applicable to the mobile devices as we can. Could you please shift to the next slide? Okay, so on the demand side, as opposed to, I think, other regions, here, at least in the Eastern Europe, partly in the Western Europe as well, the last advertiser is The Good Times, which is a North European publisher. So here, advertisers are more ready to experiment. They're more aggressive, and they're looking for new ways to engage the users, especially now in the autumn when the audience is waking up and is more ready. Like this, they're in the season and they're more ready to purchase things. So one of the projects I've been launching recently is Parimatch, where we were able to sign the deal and launch the campaign all within, I think, 2 weeks. So they were really excited about the tool, and they were really ready to experiment and gave us like the budget to do that. They're focusing more on the engagement and getting the feedback from their users than actual conversions for now. So yeah, we're seeing that this is the trend with other advertisers we've had these conversations with. Could you please shift to the next slide? Okay, and in this context, I also want to talk about native ad formats. Recently, I had a use case where I've been helping to promote an event, a online hackathon event, with our Times Group partners. So we've been running campaigns there in 2 formats, Content+Banner as an ad and content as an ad. Both of those are very native, obviously, because they're linked to the context of the website and of the articles. Usually we try to make it this way, but also because when the users vote, depending on their answers, they can be redirected to different web pages. So for example, if you're asking within a poll whether you're interested in participating in hackathon or supporting it as a sponsor, you can be redirected to either a participant landing page or a sponsor landing page. So this is one way to create a communication with the audience, if a bit obvious one, but for each advertiser their own, obviously. And one of the formats we have not tried yet, but we are launching it, we're developing it right now, is the last one, 4+1 rule. When we are launching sponsored polls within the rotation of the polls which are already on publishers' websites. So let's imagine the case that the widget is installed on a news website, and this news website already uses polls to gather audience opinions about main events in the world. And after each 4 of these news polls, you get 1 sponsored poll, which is relevant to the context of this particular article. So this is what we're calling 4+1 sponsored poll in rotation format. Okay, next, please. Thank you. Okay, so this is just to demonstrate how the Content+Banner as an ad works. So here you can see the ad which was running on Economic Times of India website. This is a tower, and it consists, yes, it consists of two elements. This one is interactive part, which is a poll, and underneath is the banner. Both are linked together within one context in order not to contrast and create conflict between themselves. After you vote, you're redirected to the landing page. And the area on the landing page, which is marked in red, is before the redirect, it is blank. But after the user comes to this page, it is filled with the poll, which was voted on. So if the user, obviously for these campaigns, we're running many creatives, not just this one poll. So the poll they will see on the landing page is the poll user votes on. So it can be different each time. This is not a mandatory thing, because in order for it to work, the advertiser has to paste a string of JS code on their website, in the admin side of the website. But we recommend it because it creates a more natural user experience, because this is not just a clickbaiting, this is a continuous experience. You vote and then you get the result of the vote on the page you've landed on. The next one, please. Yeah, and this is what I have been mentioning, that we, in each of our campaign, we're really focusing right now in creating the same comfortable experience for the users on mobile devices as well. This is important to the advertisers, important to us, and obviously important to the users, which are carrying their devices throughout the day. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. Appreciate that. And now I am happy to announce our next representative representing the Caribbean, Wendell. Wendell, please proceed. Wendell, you might be on mute. Can you hear me? Let's see, let me just give him a chat notification. Please hold, everybody.
Can you hear me? Hello.
I can hear you. Thank you, Wendell.
Oh, thank you so much to the 1World team as well as Republic for this opportunity to share with our listening audience some of the exciting and most recent developments in the Caribbean region. After our two other regional representatives, Julia and Wally, went through some details, I'd like to give our listening audience a real life feel of how fast 1World can assist with the deployment, as well as the support and ultimately the flexibility which is possible. So the publisher that we affiliated with is Guardian Media, and they come under the umbrella of Answer Macau group of companies, which has about 2 billion in assets. They cover 73 different companies in 8 sectors: automotive, beverage, construction, distribution, financial services, manufacturing, real estate, and media. That's where Guardian Media TT and CNC3 come in. Our association with them occurred as a consequence of reaching out to Alex of 1World. And once I made the pitch and we were able to connect, we created a meeting July 8, and from July 8, when they indicated we want to use the 1World polling system for our August 10th elections, with a snap of a finger, the entire 1World team, Alex, Emily, Dan, Romano, Julia, all got into action, and we were able to get the interactive media units deployed and up and running by July 29th. And on July 29th, we had 294,000 views. Incredible. So I'd like our audience to really get a feel for how fast 1World operates, the support that they provide. And once we had the IMUs deployed, July 29, when the election actually occurred on August 10th, the viewership went up to 321,000 people. And right after the election, the numbers went up even more to 392,000. And if you think that was all, well, it got better, because the publisher said right after the election, we have another big event. And if you can go to the next slide, please, Suk, with the CPL, which stands for the Caribbean Premier League, which is a major cricketing event. In 2019, they saw an increase in their viewership of 56% to 312 million people. And our publisher had exclusive TV rights for this event and wanted us to do something. So right after elections, August 10th, we now have this major cricket event occurring in Trinidad and Tobago, which is the southernmost of all the Caribbean islands. Again, 1World, the team was super fast, great flexibility, and we saw during the event something like 500,000 views. It's simply astounding at how people are really engaging. Some of our advocates spoke about engagement, and that's what we're really seeing happening with the 1World IMUs. Right after that event, most people would think, okay, maybe it would slow down a bit. On the contrary, we've seen it increase from September 17 to September 23rd, just yesterday, on Guardian Media TT, there were 1.6 million views, and people feel as though they want to voice their opinion on some of the subject matter. There were 8,500 votes and 1.1 million ad impressions. So that gives you a sense of how dynamic things are in the region and why we started with Guardian Media TT and CNC3 as a result of the big footprint that their parent company, Anson Macau, has throughout the region as well as in America. This augurs very well going forward. And in terms of a strategy, we are now going to tap into their 2 million users on social media to put some information, to get them to redirect to the polls where they can find them online on both Guardian Media as well as CNC3. And I simply think the numbers are going to keep growing from here on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendell. We appreciate that. And thank you to all of our regional managers for being champions in your respective regions. I also want to thank once more our advocates, Saul and Neville, for joining us and providing your input and your expertise on certain areas of digital media and publishing. I just like to sum up with, we'll be hosting this recording and sending it via Republic and to everyone who is in attendance today. We will be also hosting another webinar in the coming weeks, so please stay tuned for a Zoom registration link where everyone can attend. We'll have more executives and members from the 1World team to be able to provide and shed more light on our acts and efforts. Thank you very much, everybody, and you have a great day. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Bye.